Hello, Nova Nation. Welcome back to Cats on the Court. I'm David Szscepanski.
I'm Madison Hodges.
And I'm Nathan Mathur.
All right, so much to get to since our last episode in the beginning of the month, talking about that game against Creighton. Unfortunately, we all know that didn't go Villanova's way. Since then, a great win against Coach Pitino and St. John's at the Finn, a top 10 win against St. John's, but then two really tough road losses to Providence, a game that personally I think Villanova maybe overlooked a little bit, a game that really wasn't competitive, and then of course the loss to UConn where they blew a 14-point lead in the second half. But just like Villanova has been this entire season, the most inconsistent team in college basketball, playing Marquette at the Wells Fargo Center a couple days ago, beating number 16 Marquette. So just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on the season so far. I know we talked about it in the last few episodes, but as we now get to March, which I'm sure everybody's looking forward to, March Madness and the Big East tournament, Villanova trying to make the tournament for the first time in the last couple of years. How can Villanova do so? What are your thoughts on the current state of the team?
Yeah, for sure. Their win against Marquette was huge, something that they needed as a team. They had 3 players in double figures, which was also helpful in their win. They were firing on all cylinders, both on offense and defense. So to close out this season with only 3 more games in conference play, they really need to continue playing 40 minutes of Villanova basketball.
And when you look back, we beat UConn, St. John's, and Marquette all at home. So at home, we are a very formidable team. But as we all know, March Madness is not played in the Fenner Pavilion or Wells Fargo Center. Neither is the Big East tournament. So it'll be very interesting to see with this team now, can we replicate the performances we have when we're in front of a home crowd, when we make 15 threes against Marquette, when we play 40 minutes of Villanova offensive basketball? Can we do that now in a road or neutral venue? It'll be very interesting to see.
The road stats, I think, are very interesting. Villanova with just 2 wins in away games this season. The Wildcats have not finished with less than 3 wins on the road since 2011-2012, so a long time ago for this Villanova team. As we kind of look ahead to this final 3 games of the season, you have 2 road matchups coming up. We talked about the road struggles, Nathan just brought it up, but against Seton Hall and Georgetown, and then you have that home game against Butler. Now these are all games that Villanova should win. When you look at the record for these teams, when you look at the matchup on paper, unfortunately, as we know, it's not always about the matchup on paper and what team looks to be better, but Villanova is going to be favorites in all 3 of these games. How can they get across the finish line and sweep the final 3 games? Because also when you think about, I know Nathan talked about in the last episode, the Big East tournament, you kind of want to get that 5 seed. Now the matchup, we were talking about a little bit before filming this, the matchup for that 5 seed is a little bit more difficult, right? You have to play UConn in that day game on Thursday. You do get the final bye, but then if you do win that game, you're going to have to play St. John's. So a tough road there, but if you're Villanova, you probably want to avoid playing on Wednesday night as best as possible.
As you had stated, we need to win these next 3 games, and we should win these next 3 games. And how we're going to win these next 3 games is if we play 40 minutes of Villanova basketball, again, having all players involved, both on offense and defense, and making sure that we continue to have Eric Dixon involved, Jameer Brickus, and then Jordan Dumont, who had a breakout game this past weekend at Marquette. If he can do the same thing, we can definitely get a win these next 3 wins.
You just mentioned it, Madison. The rise of Jordan Dumont could be very important for this team in the next couple of weeks. Just another 3-point threat for this team. It was crucial against the Golden Eagles. It's going to be crucial in these next 3 games. I think we sweep the next 3, but when we play a team without a rank number in front of their name, we seem to struggle for bizarre reasons. So I'm not going to confirm it. I think we win these 3, though. And in terms of the tournament, it's just day after day after day, can we have Eric Dixon be efficient on the offensive end of the floor? Can we have Jameer Brickus limit the turnovers? And can we have those other scorers like the Perkins and the Poplars get us 10 to 15 points to beat the class of the Big East and get into the field of 68?
Yeah, it's always great when Eric Dixon can pick up 20, 25 points a game, but Villanova is the best version of itself. When you have, as you said, guys like Wooga Poplar, but also bench players like Tyler Perkins, who Coach Neptune always calls the battery, and also Jordan Dumont, who had a career-high 15 points on Saturday against Marquette. So when everybody gets involved, also going off what Madison said, that really helps this Villanova team get going. Kind of wrapping up, we talked about the 3 games coming up at Seton Hall, at home versus Butler this weekend on Saturday, and then on the road against Georgetown in the beginning of March. Looking ahead to that game against Georgetown, that's probably the toughest matchup they're going to face. Georgetown just a game and a half as of right now behind them in that 7 seed. Villanova right now in that 6 seed. If the Cats win all 3 games, Xavier loses to Creighton, Villanova will get that 5 seed. So when you look ahead to that game against Georgetown, we had some news today come out from John Rothstein that Thomas Sorber is going to be out for the rest of the season as he is going to have surgery on his foot. So kind of when you look at that and that change, Sorber, the number 2 scorer right now, star freshman on this Georgetown team. Micah Peavy has been really good, so is Jaden Epps for this Hoyas team, but Sorber is a big loss. He's getting NBA draft attention. He's averaging almost a double-double per game. How much is that going to impact this final game against Georgetown?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, that's a loss for Georgetown, but for Villanova, this is something we need to capitalize on. Their best player on the team is out. We need everybody to step up then to get that win.
Another fun little wrinkle, Thomas Sorber was the near recipient of the Wooga Poplar swing from the first game in the Finneran Pavilion, the one that we had the late game collapse. So Wooga was ejected from that game in the first half, which I think really changed the complexion early on. So if there's no Sorber to sort of stir up the pot, I think 5 stays in the game. The Cats can get a big win.
Yeah, that's what Villanova would love to have. Of course, would be a quad 2 win as of right now. That'd be great to add to Villanova's resume in our nation's capital. We'll have WXVU coverage of that game against Georgetown on March 4th. That game for a late tip-off in D.C. at 8 p.m. So join us at 7:30 p.m. for WXVU pregame coverage. And we'll now get to our stat and also Big East check-in of the week.
Hello viewers, I am Nathan Mathur here for Villanova Television for the Cats on the Court Stat of the Week. I'm going to be focusing on the Cats' big win in the Wells Fargo Center against number 16 Marquette. In this game, we talked about it earlier with Madison, how the Wildcats played a complete 40 minutes. And the stats reflected. We led for 39 minutes and 40 seconds out of this game. And I had an interview with Coach Neptune a bit earlier in the month, and he was stressing how we need to have complete games, a full 40 minutes. Sometimes we play a good first half or a second half. But this is one of the first examples that we can look back on as fans and say, against a really good team, Villanova, for a whole game, dominated a top-tier opponent, which is something we are going to need to do in the coming weeks to make the field of 68. And that is your Stat of the Week.
Hey Nova Nation, I'm Annika Veurink, and today I'm going to be giving you the men's basketball standings. Currently they are ranked 6th again, and they are 9-8 so far in their in-conference season. St. John's is ranked number 1, but we're getting up there, we're getting those wins for the teams that we need to, and excited to see how we continue into next week.
Thank you, Annika. As we begin to wrap up today's episode of Cats on the Court, what a great episode it's been. Talked about a lot in this game. Villanova getting ready, of course, for their final stretch, final 3 games of the season. Let's talk about our favorite men's basketball games of this season. I know it's been an inconsistent one, Nova Nation. I'm sure you agree with me out there, but they have had some pretty nice wins. Madison, where do you go for your favorite game?
Mine personally was Marquette, the game that they had just played this past weekend. They played 40 minutes of Villanova basketball, which was great to see. Everybody was involved. And also, I got to see Kyle Lowry, too.
I'm going to go with a bit of a random pick. NJIT way back in November. It was the
Highlanders.
Wow. Yeah, it was the first game. I was in the student section 4 with all of my buddies. It was a great atmosphere, a great Friday night game, and really made me feel like I was a Villanova student for one of the first times.
That's awesome. So more of a personal experience.
Yes,
Even though it was a good game. Villanova played well against NJIT.
Yes.
For me, I'm going to go with the win against Xavier a couple weeks ago. And I feel like we have to mention, right, the St. John's win was fantastic. I mean, the way that they played defensively against St. John's and the way that they were able to score enough against the Red Storm, that really good defense, that press against Coach Pitino, which we have seen give Villanova so many fits for the past couple years. But the way that they played in that Xavier game, I really loved it because you had Dixon who had 24 points, you had Poplar who had 23, who, by the way, has scored at least 10 points in 6 of his last 7 games. He only scored 5 points in the game against Marquette, so his averages are a little bit down in terms of the last 7 games. So he's played really good recently. But then you also had Tyler Perkins off the bench who had 20 points. Villanova shot 50% from behind the arc in that game. So that was just a really full effort from Villanova where you had Dixon, you had Poplar going, but also how explosive Tyler Perkins was. But I think all great options. Of course, we had to bring up the St. John's game, though. I mean, that's fresh in a lot of people's minds. So thank you so much for tuning into this video. As always, we do want to remind you, talked about it last week as well, if you would like to send in a video, you can do that. Send it into our VTV Sports Instagram in the DMs. Just pretty much any question that you want to ask us or ask the players. Can't guarantee it's going to get to the players, but it will get to us. Doesn't have to be about basketball. Can be, spring break activities, favorite type of dessert, anything like that. You can definitely reach out to us there. Please try to keep the video within 30 seconds to a minute. And also, you can just include your first name, and might answer your question right here on Cats on the Court. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this episode, men's basketball edition of Cats on the Court. I'm David Szscepanski.
I'm Madison Hodges.
And I'm Nathan Mathur.
And as always, go Cats!